Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. Today, I'm joined by Jade Gooding, founder of No Mum is an Island. Jade's a coach and conscious parenting advocate who helps teens and families build resilience and emotional intelligence and self mastery. A mum to a neurodivergent daughter, she combines her lived experience with powerful mindset tools to support both kids and parents on their journey to thrive. Welcome, Jade.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited for this conversation. I follow you on Instagram and I have done for probably a few years now, actually. And I absolutely love everything you share, everything you talk about, the snippets of your life in Ibiza with your daughter, and how I was going to say homeschool because that's just what comes to my mind, but it's actually unschool. It's called unschooling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it'd be good to talk about all of that. But yeah, I just love, your conscious parenting words of wisdom, the fact that you're a big advocate for everything that's going on in Palestine and, your just raw authenticity and passion about all things children and taking care
Thank
of
you.
the mothers of our world. So let's talk first about No Mum is an Island and the reason you set it up and what that means to you.
Yeah, of course. So, gosh, I set up No Mum is an Island when my daughter was maybe about three, so probably about 10 years ago. And I just really felt like I was a single mum and I had a 3-year-old. I lived on an island. My community was very much, I was a kind of, a party girl, and I had a very rock and roll lifestyle here in Ibiza. And then suddenly I was pregnant and I didn't know anyone with children, and I was super isolated and really like, Christ, I've now got a child, I'm alone, and it was huge. It was really big for me. And then it wasn't in the best circumstances. So then I sort of found myself like in this situation of being a single mom and the stress that is as a mom of being a single mom, being the sole breadwinner, trying to raise your child. It's a really difficult time. And then also realizing you haven't done the personal work yet to the level that you probably need to. That when you have a child and being tired and frazzled and triggered and all of those things. My daughter has always been really, really strong-willed, which I now understand as neurodivergent, but at the time it was just very strong-willed. And she needed more time and more. And I think I just felt like there must be other mothers who felt like this and were having this experience. And wouldn't it be really nice to kind of share with each other the journeys that we're on? Because when you're having a struggle or you're having a challenge and it feels really overwhelming, you can feel really, really alone. And if you share that, then what happens is other people, particularly on the gram, which is the kind of the perfect place, if you go, it's not perfect, you attract a lot of people who actually need to hear that authenticity because they're struggling themselves. So No Mum is an Island was kind of a place for that. And also, we're not alone. We're not islands. Maybe our tribe isn't next door to us, but they might be in Australia or they might be somewhere else in the world, and we can connect online. Often late at night when our children are finally sleeping and we feel like we want some mum time,
Yeah.
which is not a healthy mum time, but I think at 10 years ago it was less so.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just felt I wanted to share and I wanted to connect with other parents and ultimately to support other parents.
Yeah, I love that. And I think often becoming a mum sort of drives you, those really difficult, challenging early years, or maybe even the first year, it drives you to either find something you're passionate about or, I don't know, set up something where you find that sense of community, which we're so lacking and in need of as mothers who are nurturing people who need that emotional kind of support. And yeah, we often just get thrown into seeking that out and needing that. And I think that if there's no better time, it's early motherhood years where you really need it, isn't it?
Totally. And also I think maybe in some of my challenges in those early days where, I was a single mom, I was struggling to pay the rent, I needed to buy food and was like, oh, I haven't got very much money for food this week. In that, I recognized my immense privilege because the only reason that I didn't have as much money was because I couldn't fly to London to see my fancy clients in London, or, I still had designer dresses and in my wardrobe, and I could still have borrowed money off any number of people if I'd have really wanted to. And it was a blip in my ability to work because I had a baby. But in that, I kind of, the thing that overwhelmed me was there are so many other people that don't have the feeling that I have, like it's going to be fine because, I'll be able to pick up a client in 6 months' time when she's a bit older, and then the money will roll again. So within that, and I had nice clothes in my wardrobe to go to an interview for, and I could, people say, "Oh, come around for lunch," and that is such a privilege. And I guess I was really moved by the fact that I had that and that others don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's such a good way to look at it, just to feel that gratitude sometimes in life when you can be like at the lowest of the low, but gratitude can often, just a practice that you use every day. And I'm not saying like, I know for some this can be really hard, but it's just in those moments of like real challenging times. I know for me personally, gratitude has like really got me out of that and just shifted. Like, you're talking about personal development and mindset. It saved me in so many
Well,
situations.
me too. Someone lent me, I can't remember who it was even by now. It was called Tiger Mother or some sort of coaching program that was an add-on, and someone gave me it because they'd bought the coaching thing, and I was like, "Oh, it's a thing for mothers." And in it, and so this was 10 years ago, longer. And she said, when you walk home and there's a pile of dishes, you just have to look at that pile of dishes and go, how grateful that my au pair, because I lived somewhere where people want to come and live for free in exchange for helping housework. So I had an au pair. I'd come home and there was a pile of dishes. It's like, you know what? How incredible that I know that my au pair and my child have eaten today rather than like, oh, there's loads of dishes,
Yes.
there's just glitter all over the floor. And you're like, that means they had fun all afternoon. So
Yeah.
just exactly that, finding the gratitude in the really tiny things is life changing.
It's a great reframe, isn't it, when you can do that? And I know that, my sort of early months of motherhood were so sleep deprived, actually, probably the first year, so sleep deprived. And I remember just feeling like huge resentment towards my husband and just feeling really like angry at him all the time. And that's when I started doing a lot of self-development work. And just exactly that, I would sort of be laying there next to my son, and for months it would have been, oh, I hate that I have to do this, and I hate that it's always me that has to do this, and I'm the one that never gets any sleep, and he gets all the sleep. And then when I started shifting that to saying, how lucky are we that we can both fit in a bed together, and how grateful that we don't all have to be sharing one room, and lots of things would be popping up that I could feel grateful for, and suddenly I started accepting it and thinking this isn't forever and I'm probably going to miss this in a few years. And then gradually, because I was softening and my nervous system was feeling more regulated rather than trying to rush and stress and laying there thinking all the negative thoughts, which he was probably picking up on and sensing, everything started shifting. And so it just has a knock-on effect, doesn't it?
Yeah, hugely so. Yeah, hugely so. And that's, like you say, it is really hard when you're in the thick of it. And
Mm.
it definitely, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to be able to shift that perspective. But I think it's a gift for anyone that can learn to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, life in Ibiza, I'd love to find out about. I have never been to Ibiza and I've always wanted to go. I'm very interested and nosy. So, I'd love to hear about what life is like, and how old is your daughter, and
So
what's.
my daughter is 13 next month.
Okay, so you're
Yeah.
in the thick of like preteen years, and I'm sure lots of emotions and
Yeah,
changes there.
hormones, emotions, all running wild. So yeah, I mean, so I moved to Ibiza 15 years ago. I just separated with my husband, and I didn't really know where to go. And I worked in digital marketing for many years, and I thought, well, Ibiza is a great place to go. My ex-husband was a DJ, so the music industry was all here, and it just felt like a really natural progression. I mean, it's like the worst place to go. Leave your husband and move to Ibiza. It's textbook. Anyway, so I think my mum was very terrified for me in that moment of my life, just coming to Ibiza and the nightclubs and the partying and the lifestyle. I will say that since living here, I've been here 15 years, 9 years of that has been sober.
Yeah.
So I think it's been a total gift. Like if someone had said that I would move to the party island of the world and get sober and clean, I would never have believed that because I was just so in the system. But then when I had a child, I was like, oh, this is not a good combination.
Yeah.
And so it's been really good for me, actually. It's been a very grounding island, but it's well known for the crazy parties and, the best clubs in the world and all of that side of things. And then there is this beautiful, where I live in the north. I mean, I live in a traditional old finca. I have chickens and cats and a vegetable garden. And, I have this beautiful life. Yet I can walk sort of 10, 15 minutes to Akasha where they do the Namaste party, which is like a family friendly party with dancers. And yeah, it's beautiful. It's really
Right.
lovely. So, you kind of, the natural side of Ibiza is beautiful. The beaches are incredible. There's loads of yoga and wellness. And because it is such a dynamic island, it attracts people from all over the world. So I sort of joke that you don't have to go anywhere because the world comes here. Zach
Yeah.
Bush is like my favorite person in the world. And I don't know if you know Zach Bush, but
I've heard of the name.
really quite incredible. When he talks about agriculture and parenting and death and all of the things. I mean, he's a poet in so many ways. He's such a like it's like he channels. You pop into your local cafe and he's there having a cup of tea,
Ah,
and you're like, wow. So
ah,
like so many people are attracted here. So many fascinating people. So it's a really lovely place to live, and so you get a little bit of island fever. So I had my daughter under those unexpected circumstances. So I was with my ex-husband for 10 years and I came to Ibiza, and with 18 months I found that I was pregnant with the boyfriend I'd been with for 8 weeks.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
A very, very unexpected curveball, like the best one in the world, but it did lead to me being a single mom quite quickly, and it wasn't at all how I would have imagined my journey to be.
Yeah.
And so I did, early on, kind of, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was just sort of following other parents. And when I grew up, my mum was a hippie, so she had friends, and their kids didn't go to school, and there were kids that were home educated, and we went to lots of music festivals and hung out at Glastonbury when we were like 3 years old. So like I definitely had an alternative upbringing, and I had seen different ways of being. But initially, I put my daughter in nursery when she was about 18 months old. Or maybe she was just a little bit older than that, actually. Maybe she was 2. She was just over 2. She was
Mm.
just over 2. She went to nursery at Benaras, which is just like the most perfect, picture perfect nursery in the whole world. And then she started school at 4, which
Okay.
is what age they start school here. And gutturally and instinctively, it felt wrong. Like it felt like there was something wrong. And then there was a situation in the year above her, so with 5-year-olds, and someone had said that the children had been out of control. And so the teacher had asked them to put their hands on the desk and then their foreheads on the desk so they could talk to them so they wouldn't be disruptive in the class.
Really?
Yeah, I know. It's like
That's
because
weird.
Spain's definitely not the UK. It's still antiquated in quite a few ways, like
Mm.
birth and or my birth story was not, it's not good. I mean, it was really, they still put you in stirrups back then. So it's
Ah,
15, 13 years ago. They still make you lie on your back and strap you in on stirrups.
no way.
So yeah, I mean, it's just
Wow.
like a baptism of fire having a child here. But now I understand that they have birth pools and they have balls and you can give birth in different positions and but that was not my story. But I did do
Yeah.
hypnobirthing, so I knew that I had to block out everything when I
Yeah.
got there because I knew
I
it
did
was
as well, actually. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
it
really
really
good,
makes a
isn't it?
huge difference.
Yeah,
Like
it's amazing.
huge considering how traumatic the whole thing was, it was really a gift.
Yeah.
So I fell into the system, from birth to kind of 4, I was in the system. And then I read what's he called? I read Ken Robinson's Creative
Ah.
Schools,
Ah, right.
which
Yes.
is just, I mean, his TED Talk is like one of the most popular TED Talks of all time.
Mm.
And called Is Creativity Killing Schools? And this oh sorry, Are Schools Killing Creativity? And the book was so incredible that in that moment I knew that I had to take my daughter out of school. There was just
Right.
no question that school was the right model for us. So she is born in she's late August, so she's like the youngest in her year.
Yeah.
So she was little, and I just thought, you know what, no. So by the age of 5, we were out of the school system. There's a slightly grey area because that's illegal in Spain.
Yeah. See,
So
this is what makes it so hard, isn't it?
it's
When
so, and I really feel it's a really difficult situation because I do know that, there's just been a case, I'm sure you read about it in Spain, where in COVID, 2 kids went into lockdown with their parents and they only just got found now. And they've been locked down in their house since. They've been in their house. Yeah, it's horrific, horrific story. And actually, you read it and it makes your skin crawl and think, how the hell were those 2 children in that house for 4 years without leaving the house?
oh my
And
God.
just like the state of where they were living, and so like I do understand why social services want to know where children are and want to check on, like, I do understand, I really understand that. I do understand that. But at the same time, I think the education system is so broken and is so antiquated, and it doesn't serve children who are different,
Mm.
neurodivergent, as I eventually found out. And so for me, I just wanted to take her out. So I took her out and I found a school here, which was with 10 other parents. It took place in somebody's house, but it was essentially it was an illegal school.
Yeah.
But we had a beautiful Montessori teacher. It was really amazing. It was literally like the best thing you could imagine.
Nice.
And so we kind of went down that Montessori route for a few years, and then we went to Bali and we did some unschooling and some world schooling.
Mm.
She went to the Wood School, which is a neo-humanist school, which is just, they're out in the rice fields, they're collecting rice and they're feeding animals and they're learning English curriculum, but then they're also doing all these amazing Balinese activities, like making Balinese soaps, and it's a really beautiful way of
Wow.
life. And I know lots of people that world school uh,
Yeah.
in Costa Rica or Bali, and it's just literally you take your whole family for 6 months or a year or 3 months, and you just work from somewhere else, and your child has this like incredible experience.
Yeah, I've just discovered world schooling. I know what a home education is, and I know from you, I think I asked you a couple of years ago, what does unschooling actually mean? And you explained that to me. So I might ask you to explain that
Yeah,
to
of
the
course.
listeners in a minute. But world schooling is something that I've just come across, and I basically was saying to someone, what I would love to do is because me and my husband we love traveling, we met traveling, and since having kids, we've not been able to do much of that, obviously. But my dream is to basically world school and everything you've just described. And I just would love for them to learn about other cultures and eat different foods and be outside, and but also for them to learn in their at their own pace. Because my struggle is teachers saying, "Oh, well, they're going a bit slow for this, and they're not quite there with that, and they should have learned this by now." And it's like, what? Who says who? Like,
Yeah.
why is there a rush? Like, that's what does my head in. So yeah, it's the world schooling thing is very appealing for me
Well,
because
and the other thing, I've got some friends who have just gone. I'm not sure what it is that they've joined, but they've joined a thing where it's for working parents who all work separately. So it's almost like a co-working holiday. So
yeah,
you have somewhere to live, you have your own little house, and then the kids have like a summer camp every day where they're doing things and they're learning. And I think this is more summer camp than educational. But
mm,
there are loads of offers because so many people want to travel. Or they can be digital nomads, or they want something different for their children, and there is, like I remember when we were in Bali, going back to gratitude, the way the Balinese people live. Look, well, I live in Ibiza. It is almost filthy when you see the super yachts and the private jets and the bar bills for the for the clubs where it's like 25 grand a table or 125 grand a table.
yeah,
There's villas here that cost 150 grand a week. It's extreme wealth, and
yeah,
there's something really incredible for a child to see extreme poverty, to see, women begging on the street with babies, which for me, because that really triggers me, I was so upset. And I said to the woman in the restaurant, "Oh my God, she's got her baby with her. This is really, really upsetting." And she said, "Oh, it's not her baby. She's rented it."
oh
I was just like, oh my God, imagine being that, and having those really difficult conversations with a child, because that,
yeah,
my child's standing next to me whilst this is all happening, and sort of seeing this incredible disapprobation of the differences of the world and the humility that your child learns
yeah,
through that. I mean, I understand it is an absolute privilege to travel with our children like that.
mm,
We rented our house out. Like we made lots of changes to be able to do it. And actually, once you rent your house out for 6 months in somewhere like England, and then you can live incredibly well in somewhere like Bali.
yes. So where are you from originally?
So I'm actually from Lincolnshire
Oh,
originally,
okay,
in the
right, yeah.
Midlands, and I lived in France, and then I moved to Ibiza 15 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because where we live, it's a very like, I guess, white conservative sort of area. And I love it. It's beautiful, lovely countryside. And I love the village life. But I have had to explain to my boys a few times, like the where you go to school, like we're in a bit of a bubble here, like, and explaining things like poverty and that there's children in the world who really their lives are completely different because they're so, they're in their little bubble. And I think it's so important to educate them. And that's another big reason why I'd love to do things like that, because it's like, then you get to
Laura, there's
see
a
it.
really amazing website called Gap Finder, and
Okay.
it's called Dollar Street. If you Google Dollar Street, you'll
Mm.
find this amazing web resource, and basically it shows you the incomes of families across the whole world from $15 a day to a month to like $20 $20,000, and it shows you all of the how their bathrooms look, how their bedrooms look, what their toys are, and it's so amazing just to help children understand that
Yes.
when you don't have travel. It's one of my
Okay.
favorites.
Thank you. I've just typed it in and I'm going to keep that page
Yeah,
open when
keep
they
it
get home from
open.
school. I'll show them later. But yeah,
And then look, and then the outside. So when we kind of got through that, then we came out from Bali, and then we've kind of moved into a kind of a grey area around education. It was becoming clear that my daughter was neurodivergent, but I didn't really understand what that meant, which is quite entertaining because now I do. I'm also very neurodivergent myself. But we started to explore unschooling. We moved to Devon because we wanted alternative education that was legal. So that was a really big thing for us.
mm,
And she started going to a 3 day a week school that was kind of a mixture of Schumacher and Montessori. And then and then I started reading John Holt.
mm,
And John Holt is, he is the king of unschooling. And I think he is an incredibly reassuring source for parents that are a little bit unsure. What if my kid can't read? What if my kid can't write? What if my kid can't, all of those fears, because you get quite a lot of guilt around that, thinking, what am I getting this wrong?
yeah.
And he is a real advocate for children learning it in their own time and in their own pace. And he's saying that a child will want to pick up a book when they're ready. And I witnessed it with my own daughter. She had letter cards, and I read to her every day. And we talked about words, but there was no kind of forced learning of reading. So when
Mm,
she was at 7, I was thinking, oh, she doesn't read. That might like all my friends have got like 6-year-olds that read, and she's not reading. Um, and then just one day she was like, what does this word? What does that word say? What does this word? And there was just a shift, like this inquisitive sense where she started asking all these questions. And then she literally went from reading like little picture books to full chapter books in 6 months.
mm,
Now she can read for hours, easily 4 or 5 hours. Like I have to literally like turn the light out, like go into her bedroom, like turn the light out, and she's under the covers reading. It's like a real passion of hers, but
oh,
she learned at her own pace. And the same with writing. I mean, he says that, I mean, we all know that children's hands aren't developed to hold a pencil anyway, like that's now well known. But he says until about the age of 11, they're not interested because they're not ready for it. They need to learn all this stuff but first. And seeing a child at 11 suddenly be like, oh, I'm going to write a diary and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And yeah, the handwriting is shitty to start with, but it takes time and it's a process. And yeah, I've really enjoyed his work, and it's been really, really reassuring when I've wanted to trust the process of learning. And
mm,
like you can't unschool and just have a screen on all day. You need
mm,
to unschool and have books splayed out so that they can choose what they want. And a friend of mine was saying, Jade, this is rubbish. This is absolute rubbish what you're doing. I was like, okay, well, you're here for 4 days. I am going to strew, that's what they call it, strew the books. So I strewed the books on the table, and I also strewed a times tables chart. Anyway, so day 1, didn't look at them. Day 2, didn't look at them. Day 3, we came down to breakfast. She's like, did you know Henry VIII? And she was just giving us all these facts from this book. And she loved it because she loves family trees and family. And it's something
mm,
that's one of her kind of core values. And she'd found that this book was all about that. And so suddenly it was really interesting to her. And with the times table block, she was like, have you seen the patterns? And I'm very numbers dyslexic. So I was like, no, I don't see any pattern. She's like, look. And she was showing me the patterns. And she said, but why does it only go to 1 to 10? Can you expand it to go to 1 to 20? I said, okay. And then there's your unschooling moment where, they're asking for it. And then that's your point to kind of go, do you want to watch a documentary on, I don't know, anything, what it is? Do you want to watch horrible histories? Do you want to do something? Do you want to learn a book, or should we get something out of the library? Or it kind of, you're following your child's interest, and they might ask you random questions like, how do they build a bridge that's when it's underwater? and you're not a teacher, I'm not a teacher. I can't say, oh, well, let me tell you. So instead, I'm like, okay, I don't know. Let's find out. Let's find out about how they make these bridges. And then suddenly you're in an engineering workshop with your child because you're learning together.
Yeah.
I really,
So
really
nice.
like that.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. I love that. I just, how nice would the world be if I know that with some jobs, people, it's very hard for certain parents to be able to do that. And it is
Yeah,
almost like a luxury. If there's people, if you're a doctor or whatever, you have to be out of the house
yeah,
all
exactly.
day. And I know that, like, I guess if you tried really hard, there's alternatives. Like you said, there's a sense of community. And I think we're seeing more of that now across the world, Western world, maybe. I mean, it seems like I'm seeing so many people from the UK, the US, and Europe talking about, oh, we've now decided to homeschool and this is what it looks like. And I'm like, oh, it just sounds so lovely. But the John Holt stuff, yeah, I went down a rabbit hole learning about all of that when you first mentioned it to me a couple of years ago, I think it was. And I was like, yes. And this is how we do things at home. Like, I don't really take the stuff from school and say, hey, guys, can you just do that? I just basically let them learn in the way they want to learn, and it's so much more fun, and less pressure. And my eldest is very strong-willed, so anything that I push upon him, he will fight back unless it's something he really wants to do. So for children like that, it's helpful, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm just like, how much do they need to learn all this stuff? And at what age? I see children like being encouraged to learn things when they're really young. And I think, yeah, okay, okay, yes, but where is the play? Where is the play? Where is the being outside? Where is the sports? Where is the, just having fun? That's what I loved. That's why we went to Devon, because they have so many like wood schools and forest schools and communities. And, so they have people that meet up, like every Wednesday in the woods, and the kids literally just run around with sticks for 4 hours, and maybe they light a fire, and maybe they kind of, get involved in a discussion about something, but really it's just wild play. And these kids are just like, they're free. And I do think that children should have that. I think it's really important,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
because you look at like nature deficit, where people become deficit of nature because they're not in nature. And you see a child go to school and they've got their plastic soled shoes and they go into the lino floor. They're not even connected. And it's proven that grounding is like the most centering thing there is. But these kids are not touching the dirt or the outside at all. They're going from their carpeted houses into their lino floored schools with their trainers on, which are too tight for their little toes, which are squeezing them in. All of these things that we are separating them from their human nature.
Mm,
And for me, it makes me feel so sad because I actually think that they're better off running around when they're young, but I also think, I wonder if over 11, like I just see all those kids underneath. I'm like, I think you should just be playing, and just having fun and asking questions. And they ask so many questions because they want to know how things work. They want to know how the train works. They want to know how the clock works. They want to take things apart. They want to, and I know that not everybody can do that with their children. It takes huge sacrifices. I would work at night, or I'd work really, really early in the morning, and I could get up at 6 and do work early before she woke up so that I could have that time. It's not just like, oh, I have an infinite wealth, so I can do it. I've
yeah.
had to make loads of sacrifices. I've had to earn less money. I've had to work my life in ways that I'm available for her. And that might mean working really early in the morning, really late at night. But I think it's worth it. And it's such a short window in our lives before they're grown up.
Yes, that's such a good point. And I think that's the hardest bit is where people have been conditioned to think, well, this is what success looks like, and I've got to be earning, a similar amount as my peers, and I want to keep up appearances. And that's like so important to people at a subconscious level. They think that's like the be all and end all. And this is what is quite sad. It's like, yeah, but like you said, you really don't get that long with them when they're young. And like I've basically last year sort of shifted from working full time and doing the stuff I'm doing now with the mindful generation. And since I've given up my full time job, I'm so blessed to be able to have the time to, do the school runs and seeing my youngest come in. He's 5 and he comes home and he runs into the garden when my husband gets home, who is a gardener. And he's literally picking up a spade in there, and he's like, Daddy, how do you do this? And where can I put these seeds? And all he wants to do is be outside, garden it. My eldest is a little bit different. He wants to do Lego, but just watching them do their own things and being able to help them and support them in their free play, rather than, them being on screens from the moment they get in and stuff. It's just so nice, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think yeah, it's a really good point you make there about rather than being on screens, it's so easy to give them screens, put them on screens. It's easy for us, it's like, oh, it gives us a break when we're frazzled and overworked. And but I do think that a child, if it's bored, amazing things happen. And
Yes.
they might moan at you, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored, but then suddenly they're doing all sorts of crazy things and they're making things. And I mean, the amount of times that my husband's just come home and he's like, oh my God, what happened in here?
Yeah.
Well, a whole roll of toilet paper was used to make Sylvanian family furniture and bedding and and just the craziness that goes with all of that. And it's not it doesn't lead to a tidy house, and it does lead to lots of chaos, but it's how our kids find what they love, how they find their solace. Are they going to find their solace? Maybe they've had a crappy day, or we've had a crappy day and we're not regulated, so we're moody with them, or whatever it is that's the influence. But if they're just switched on to gaming and have had a stress with their friends at school, then they're just disconnected. Whereas if they actually have to feel those feelings and then they have an outlet, and that outlet might be drawing, it might be reading, it might be a musical instrument, there's so many things that they could love. Like my daughter, when I said, like, okay, screens off, and she's like, but I'm not tired, I don't want to read. And it's like, okay. And then she got into mad sci-fi makeup. Like, I can't even, it was like professional sci-fi makeup. I don't even know how she just, because she didn't even have pictures to compare to. She was just free doing it on her own face. And
Wow.
we bought her loads of sci-fi makeup, and we bought her a woman to do a session with a tutorial to kind of build her confidence on it. And now, and so she's now, because she's a bit older and she doesn't play with the Barbies or the Sylvanians anymore, it's like, what can she do instead? And so now she does like sci-fi makeup and just the other things. When you take them away, it allows for creativity.
Yes, I love that. I don't know what sci-fi makeup is, but it sounds awesome.
Bit like horror makeup, basically, with
Yeah.
kind of all with special effects, all special
Oh,
effects
that's
things.
awesome. How cool though. Like it's art, isn't it? She's creating it
Yeah,
in her own way.
totally.
So yeah, that's fab. Yeah, okay. So unschooling, just sort of tying back into that. Is that basically what, like you said, literally strewing the books out, putting things out and allowing them to get bored and letting them pick things up in their own
So
time?
we do an adaptation, which I think actually all parents who unschool do. We have a tutor. She has a Spanish tutor. It's really important. We live in Spain. It would be crazy not to speak Spanish, and so that isn't optional. And so in child-led learning, me giving her something that's not optional isn't the thing. So she actually does English, maths, and Spanish. Those things are structured, and then around then she has been going to a really amazing thing here, but it's just been closed down by the police. So I probably won't speak about them just for their own thing at the moment. But they are in application for a license, and they have been having kids for a couple of years, and they work with the government here. And but anyway, it's a really complicated situation. So we're hoping that they will join it open again in September, because she is now 13.
Mm.
And I do think that this is the age where you do need to learn more, and you do need to, explore the many options that are possible for you, but in a kind of self-directed learning way, because there's no point in me pushing something on her that she doesn't like or she's not interested in, especially not with a neurodivergent ADHDer. She only wants to really learn what she's interested in. So it's kind of finding those threads and then helping her take that next level. And I've never spoken to her about, doing exams or any of those things. And she said to me this week or last week, and she said, do you think I could do some GCSEs? So if you would like to do some GCSEs, you can totally do some. She was like, yeah, I think I'd quite like to. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
it's just, she has an option. She doesn't have to, but she might like to. And actually English, Spanish, and maths are probably quite useful things to have. And then, she does an acting academy. So she does Imaginarium, which is an online acting all over the world. And that's amazing. So she does her silver award, which is the same as a GCSE, which is in acting. She's got into all of her sci-fi makeup, and she's just, there's different things, and it will unfold what she's interested in. We just spoke about some sign language. She wants to give it a go to do some sign language classes. So you just you just follow them.
Yeah, that's so cool. I didn't know that you could do GCSEs if you were like a homeschooled child. I didn't know that that's how
Yeah,
it
it's
worked.
slightly, it's different in different places, but yeah, you can sit, there are centres, so you can sit them. So you can do online learning for your GCSE to get you to your GCSE, and then you can go to these kind of learning centres. I know in the UK that's a place you might have to go to London, or you have to go to Wales, or wherever it is you have to go, and then you can sit your GCSEs. So yeah, you don't have to go to school to be able to get qualifications if you need them.
Mm.
But one of the things that really fascinated me when we were in Bali, we go there quite a lot, but we went to visit the Green School, which is like the holy grail of alternative schools, or it was. I think there's been a lot of changes recently. And I said, well, what about kids that don't have qualifications? Which is entertaining because I do not have qualifications, and I've done very well in my life, and I've had very successful businesses. So, I know the answer to that
Yeah.
question. But what they were saying was that they have students that are leaving and they want to go to Ivy League universities, they want to go to these places, and they have Oxford, Cambridge, wherever in America, all of these schools come to the Green School and say, how do we take your children when they don't have qualifications? Because they want these children, because they think outside of the box, they're doing different things, their approaches are completely different.
Mm.
So I think universities and colleges are more open to you not having qualifications to get in if you have outstanding work.
Yes. Yeah, I think we are seeing more of that. And even on other podcasts that I listen to, like Diary of a CEO, for example, you get people who I think even Stephen Bartlett says, I'm not interested in seeing your CV. If you want to come for a job at one of my companies, like I'll just kind of look at you as a person. So I think that's kind of shifting, which is great to know for our kids because like I said earlier, my eldest is very strong-willed, and I don't know whether my kids are going to be hugely academic. I don't really care, but I know that the world is now hopefully changing in a way that is positive for all types of children, and it's quite exciting. I think the hardest challenge for me at the moment is trying to educate and especially like for my husband and people, like trying to explain like how it works. Like it's not the be all and end all if you state schools and being in the school system doesn't mean that like that's the only answer. And especially for neurodivergent children, there are other ways. And
And don't you think, when you look at, the national suicide rates, or you look at the self-harm rates, or you look at all of these mental health issues with kids, and it
mm,
is kids, it's no longer 45-year-old men, it's 14-year-old girls.
mm,
There is obviously something massively wrong with that system. That doesn't inspire me. It doesn't make me think this is great. You've got AI coming in so fast, making life-changing well, I mean, just being life-changing for so many industries. And so we need kids who have really good mental health. We need kids who are prepared to be very, very adaptable and can change instantly and can change environments, as people's jobs are stripped away and new things arrive, and we really don't know what the future's going to look like in 10 years' time. So how can we educate them with a system that's, 100 years old with some updates in the last 20, I'm being ruthless, but you know what I mean. It's it's not as quite as black and white as that, but it does feel like that. And I just think that the world is changing so dramatically that having happy, healthy, open-minded kids that are prepared to question anything and who are ready and excited to learn about the things that they love can only be a good thing.
yeah, absolutely. And being in a place where you feel safe as well, like, the mental health struggles of children that I see through my clients, often a lot of it is things like I was holding in a wee for hours because I knew I wasn't allowed to have a wee at school and things like that. And I'm like, oh, it drives me mad. Like my son said to me recently, I wasn't allowed to go to the toilet. I was too scared to ask. And I was like, Freddie, I've told, like, as soon as I heard about that, in fact, I think it was when he was in reception, I said, hey, went to the school office and said, whatever happens, he needs to be able to go for a wee when he needs a wee. Like, I'm not sure what the rules are here, but from what I've heard from others, like, I just don't want him to sit there thinking I've got to hold this in because, yeah, I don't want that anxiety for him. And there was a stage last year where he was too afraid to ask. I was like, Fred, I told him from the beginning, you've got to just be able to, it's a basic human need. And it's disgusting that kids are made to feel like they cannot meet their basic needs. Like, that's what things like that
It's
drive me
bad
mad.
training, isn't it? It's bad training for their future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we talk about smartphones and tech quickly?
Yeah, of course.
Um, I've already told my children you're not going to get a smartphone until you're at least 14, but probably 16. And I am a regional leader for the Smartphone Free Childhood, which I'm sure you would have heard of.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on smartphones? What do you know about the dangers and what have you experienced? You know, because your daughter's older than my kids. So yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, I mean, I can scare your listeners, unfortunately. So we didn't do devices, and when my daughter was 9, her dad bought her an iPad. I did ask him not to do it. It was
Mm,
something I felt very strongly that I didn't want her to have any devices. So up until the age of 9, she did not have access to devices. You know, she would watch Netflix occasionally on my computer, but that was it. We were really not a device family. Then she had an iPad, which brought in some gaming, but it was like an hour a week. We were able to be super restricted on that. I think it kind of tied in around the kind of COVID time anyway, so she wasn't really seeing other kids to know how much screen time they got, and I was able to be very strict and keep it that way. Then when she was 11, which would definitely go against everything that I believe, I let her have access to one of my phones because I work in social media a lot of the time, so I have two phones,
yeah.
Sony accounts. And what she was finding as an unschooled, no community or 4 or 5 kid community was that she was missing out on communicating with other kids. She felt isolated anyway. She had 5 or 6 friends that she unschooled with, but then there were all these other kids that she really liked, but they all made plans to do things to me, and the kids didn't want to ring the parents to make those plans. So I could see that that was definitely a thing. So I said, okay, so you can, you can have like an hour a day or half an hour a day on this phone. It's my phone, but you can have access to WhatsApp on it. So that was what we agreed. So she didn't get a phone, and I still think it's really important that you, and actually a little fast forward, she has a phone now and she's nearly 13. Um, but it is not her phone, it is my phone.
Yeah.
I I can take that phone whenever I want. I can check all the messages whenever I want. It is not her phone. She's not having her own phone. I mean, we can talk
Yeah.
about that when she's much older, but it's not her phone. And that is the best bit of advice I've been given because it's not theirs. So going back to the phone that was my second phone. So uh like massive trigger warning now for
Hmm.
everybody. Like this is a massive trigger warning. Turn it off if yeah, if you don't want to hear this, it was really horrific. I'll probably cry. It was really
Oh,
big.
okay.
So even though we had loads of phone restrictions on, even though the phone was totally shut down, and I had, she couldn't look at, Pornhub or YouPorn or any of those things. That was all shut down. And she couldn't browse, she couldn't play games. I mean, literally, the phone was shut down to just WhatsApp. She got sent child abuse content,
Oh, shit.
like the worst you could ever imagine.
Oh my
Like
God.
if you imagine the worst thing you could imagine. And in WhatsApp you have stickies, which are little GIFs, and they're 24 frames, so you see a lot.
Mm,
And yeah, it was absolutely horrific. And as an adult, the trauma
mm,
of seeing that content, like you think you've seen everything. You have not seen everything. It was beyond horrific. It was sent to her by a 14-year-old boy who thought it was funny.
oh my God.
And we got therapy. So she had EMDR therapy, which
Oh,
is
amazing.
where it's like an eye tracking, and you have to
Yeah.
describe the images you see. You have to speak what you saw. We don't have to, but she chose to.
Mm,
And you basically you desensitize how traumatic the pictures were, and well, the videos clips were. So it was stuff that I would imagine that if you were in like the darkest of the dark web and you were looking for the most traumatic things that you could find with young girls and large adult men, that's where you would find it. But actually it can be sent in a WhatsApp sticky, and WhatsApp do not vet any of the content on those stickers.
oh, that
And
just makes me
so,
angry.
so parents, and they send them as disappearing messages. So actually, your child sees it and then it's gone instantly. My daughter was in a place with no reception, so she hit save on each one because otherwise they wouldn't load. And so then I saw in her stickies, which I mean, most people don't even know to look in their stickies, content which just blew my mind. It was so horrific. It was so traumatizing.
Mm.
And it just made me see that, like, you think that you can be really on it and really covered, but WhatsApp is brutal. It is brutal. All the disappearing messages and the fact that, it doesn't matter. I've got Custido, is it called, which is
Mm.
it's a sort of tracking to keep the phone safe, all these different things. But WhatsApp overrides everything. So whilst people I'm always like, my daughter does not have TikTok, she does not have Snapchat, she does not have Instagram, she does not have, any of these platforms. She's protected and she's just got WhatsApp so she can do her like six friends and her dad. And then all of a sudden it's someone gets added to a group and then someone from the group messages you and before you know it, there's this content here. So I would say hold off.
Yeah,
It's really
that's
hard. Like I see that the kids use it to communicate, and I see, I have an only child who was being unschooled and who didn't feel like she had much community. I mean, in England, there's an amazing community, but here, because there are illegalities around it, so I said yes to it, and the result was pretty horrific. So now she does have a phone, so she's nearly 13 and there are lots and lots of limits on it. And I get notifications if she searches certain keywords or, any of those things. And she has WhatsApp and she has a couple of games on it. Um, but other than that, really, it is for a phone. And even then, WhatsApp has status updates. They have, which I didn't even know, you can like status update, you can do polls, you can do video content, disappearing videos. There's so much in it as a platform
mm.
that, even though I'm giving it to her so she can message with her friends and her relatives and people she needs to communicate with, yeah, I mean, like, it's very hard to protect them. And I am a strict no for Snapchat. And I have fought that. I mean, she's nearly 13. She's the only one of her friends that doesn't have Snapchat. She's the only one that doesn't have TikTok. She's the only one that doesn't have Instagram.
Mm.
Pinterest, which I also think I wish I'd have known about Pinterest. Pinterest is horrific. I would
Oh,
also
really? I wouldn't have known.
really really say do not. She got Pinterest for theatre and acting, and so you can look to actors and actresses and things that people are doing, but there is a lot of self-harm content, there's a lot of anorexia content, there's a lot of yeah, suggestive content on there, and actually a lot of people channel straight from TikTok.
Right. Oh God.
So they just feed in their pins of TikTok content. So then you're like, wait a minute, just like you're watching TikTok, it even says TikTok on it.
Mm.
So that is limited. So that's what she has limited access to that. But I think social media is desperately dangerous for children, like desperately dangerous. And I
Yeah.
think, them getting, we don't know what they're seeing. I actually did get a message from Pinterest saying that she had looked at some content that was worrying
Mm.
and that they were worried about mental health, which I thought was a massive progress because I don't think any of the other platforms do that. And it
Mm.
was set to my email address, so I was able to, to bring that up in conversation.
Mm.
But I'm really happy to see the what is it called?
Smartphone free childhood.
Smartphone free childhood because it's about advocating together. If you've got
Yeah.
5 kids who are friends and all the mothers feel the same, you've won. Like,
Yeah.
but you need other mothers to do it. And we had meetings here with other mothers, and they were just like, "Oh, it's all right. It's only TikTok. It's like only this. It's only that." And like, your kid's like 12.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to create that, but I think it was a little bit ahead. I think now so many people of kids who've got 15, 16-year-olds now are waving those flags and going, oh my God, this is a horrible, horrible thing. So I actually think that there will be a shift. And I think that
Yeah.
so many parents don't want it, that there's going to be power in numbers. And it's the first time that parents have come together for a long time for a cause. And it's a very good one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that yeah, it's probably harder with children of like your yeah, your daughter's age and maybe even a bit younger because I think that the parents have already made the decision to get, there's kids in year six at my son's school who have smartphones and I've had meetings with the head teacher last year and she's like, even before they step through the school gate, they're already crying or upset or have had arguments via WhatsApp because they're getting like around 250 messages a day through all the groups. And oh, I just think for their undeveloped brains, it's so dangerous and it's so anxiety inducing and it's scary.
And
Yeah, the
dopamine inducing, which
dopamine.
is the
Yeah.
most terrifying because you're getting these rewards before you've even done anything.
Yeah. And then they wonder why they're staying up all night in their bedroom on their phones or they're not able to learn. And
But we do take the phone, we do take the devices. Like at 8:30, the devices go. Actually, what happens, we always did 8:30, devices off, come out. She doesn't go to sleep until very late. We live in Spain. It's kind of, people
yeah.
don't go to bed till late here, and she also, being ADHD, struggles to fall asleep.
Yeah.
So we take the device at 8:30. But as she's got older, she's like, all my friends are online until like 10 o'clock at night, and then they're all just taking the piss out of me because I have to come off at 8:30. So then we introduced like a 5-minute check at 5 to 10, just so that her last scene wasn't at 8:30 and she didn't feel like she'd missed out on everything.
Oh, bless. Yeah, that's a good idea to make her feel, because I think that's the hardest thing, isn't it? It's, yeah, knowing that they're not feeling alienated and, but also, yeah, it's just it's a really hard one. And I think the key is, yeah, being together as a group and pre-agreeing with your mum friends. This is what we're going to do. Like, can we make a pact? Which is what the smartphone free childhood have
It's
come up
it's
with.
great. I'm so excited for it. Like I just think it is the way forward. And I think if your child is the only child that doesn't have social media, she's so isolated. Like, and I know that all the kids are like, oh, I did this on Snap, and did you see this on TikTok? And so did this. And it's like, oh, I see her missing out on all of that, and she's the only one. Whereas if you all come together and make that decision, then your kids are protected together.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there's a lot more girls struggling with things like anxiety and eating disorders and things like that than boys from the data and the stats that I've seen.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think, yeah, I don't know. I guess like in terms of the way that they look and I don't know, just like not wanting to miss out. And yeah, the emotional side of it may be harder for girls, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't watched Adolescence because I'm my brain. I don't know if you've seen it, but
It is
everyone,
brilliant.
everyone was talking about it and I feel like I should see it, but I'm also a bit scared because
I don't
yeah.
think you should be scared. It's a really, really brilliant. It's proper British, um, cinema. It's very intense, but actually,
Yeah.
it's very nuanced. It's not. I think I couldn't stop watching it. Like I was absolutely hooked to it.
Mm.
But I think it is brilliant, and I think there's a million different ways you can view it. So some people are outraged by it. Some people think it's brilliant. There's always different things. But it does to show you kind of what the environment and schools and phones and the pressure, the pressure that kids feel and how they get tapped into these trends or belief systems, which really are not their own belief systems. Like, it doesn't matter. None of this matters, but in their world, everything matters. This whole bloody Sephora thing where, Sephora now market to teen girls, not even teen. I mean, I saw some. Where was I? I was in Ibiza yesterday and I saw an advert for a well-known beauty brand and it was a picture of a child.
Mm.
I just thought, you know, but it's only because all the TikToks in Sephora, and I've got this new whatever peach mist or whatever it's called, toxic, totally unhealthy, totally hormone interrupting for a child who's about to come on her period. Like it's so, but they all feel they have to have it, and then they've got the perfume. I can't remember what it's called now, but like something 39, and then their friends like, oh, well, I've got 64, and it's like, oh, I haven't got 64, and it's like, okay, but it's a really toxic perfume.
Yeah.
Finding that balance of those trends of like letting your child, you can say no to everything, right? You
Yeah.
can say no to everything, but I think there's also a level of pain. And I try to find, like you can have one of those perfumes. You cannot spray it in the house because it's toxic, and I have loads of perfume allergies.
Mm.
And you can only wear it out with your friends, blah blah blah. But it's got to last you, all this thing, and talk about, this cost. I don't know how 30 euros or whatever it costs, look at how other people live, having an explanation around it. And then she said her friends have got makeup bags and they're so full of makeup that even as an adult, I don't know adults that have that much makeup.
Mm.
Um, and I think the, online gives you this false perspective of you need all this makeup, you need to have a skincare routine, you need to, for girls, you need to look this way. Are your eyes wide enough? Are your lips pouty enough? Can you see your rib cage? All of this stuff. And it's really the pressure is very real. And I think neurodivergent children are more influenced because they already experience so much negative feedback and from people because they're too much or they're too this or too that, and then they go online and they're like, oh, and I'm not skinny enough and I'm not beautiful enough and I don't have enough perfume and I don't have enough, it's overwhelming, and children's brains just are not, and as you know, they're just not ready for that.
Yeah, yeah, it's scary. It is. Yeah, I've got all of that to look forward to with my boys as they grow. But yeah, I think it's hard for girls. Like you say, we're growing up in an era where we've got the internet at our fingertips, and it is scary stuff. But I think it's amazing, like you talking about this and on your Instagram as well, and kind of. I think so many people will get that information from you and think, oh, I should try that, or I should maybe cut down on that. And I think it's just all about sharing, knowledge sharing with all of this is the best we can do, really, in a consumeristic kind of world where it's, yeah, just pushed down our throats every day. So, okay. So let us know what you're working on at the moment, Jade, because obviously you've kind of shifted a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've kind of evolved like from the more sort of conscious parenting work into working with teens. Am I right? And
Yeah,
yeah.
having a teenage daughter myself who has been definitely had some pretty major things happen and also some mental health challenges, it kind of made me realize that as much as I love working with mums, there are so many kids and so many teens out there that maybe haven't had the boundaries, haven't had the emotional regulated household. I mean, I didn't. I had a very dysregulated household growing up. And, I had a really, really challenging time as a teenager. I was ADHD without knowing it. I was super dyslexic. I discovered drugs really young. I tried to kill myself when I was 17. I had this like really intense teen life. And I think when I had a child, I was like, oh, I want to help other mothers so that we can really give our children this secure basis to grow up in. And then as I'm kind of now a teen mum, I'm kind of like, oh shit, there's so many kids out there that actually need to see all of this incredible personal development work that I and many other people have done to kind of be in our centered selves. And, sometimes I think, I know so many mums that listen to podcasts and books, they listen to a podcast every day and they read these incredible books and they're learning all this amazing information. And then they say to their kid, hey, I read XYZ. And the kids are like, yeah, whatever. And it's like, but there is actually so much incredible information, whether it's really basic stuff like gratitude that was not basic, but it's huge. But, whether it's things like that or whether it's, I don't know if you've ever read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
I've heard of Viktor Frankl, but I've not read it.
Incredible. So Viktor Frankl, he was in the Holocaust. He's a Holocaust survivor, and
Mm.
he wrote the most incredible book. It's only about this big, and it's just about that thing of when we actually think about what we want in life, we might think, I want a bow, or I want to unschool my children all over the world, or I want to, like we think about this list of things that we want to do. But actually, when it actually comes that you're stripped of your humanity, it might just be flicking a light switch on and off. That might be your absolute fantasy that you get to control what time lights go out when you go to sleep. And he really strips back, and his real thing is that like it's not the problem that's the problem, it's our reaction to the problem. So,
Mm.
I found myself saying to my daughter, well, it's your reaction to the problem that's the problem, not you. And then actually she was like, but I'm only 12, so my brain's different to yours. And I was like, oh, actually, you're right. You don't have any emotional regulation. You don't have the knowledge and understanding and life experience. There's so many factors that children just are not prepared to think like that because they are, in hormonal chaos or whatever they're in. So it's how do we teach our children to start to grow and train their brain so that they are in a place of action and not reaction, and how that they do understand that there are different perspectives and their family perspectives, or there are different perspectives to their friends' perspectives, and that there are people like Martin Seligman, who's the founder of positive psychology, and he's the first person to say that he's kind of a pessimist, and that he's all of these sort of quite negative kind of sides of himself. So he learned all these new perspectives of finding how to find what kind of excites you, find your flow, learn to see beautiful things and feel awe. There's so many beautiful things, and they're small, but our kids don't know any of them because no one's teaching it. So I just thought, wouldn't it be amazing to bring together a course that's sort of, 10, 12 weeks, that each week is just like a really bite-sized perspective shift that makes them look at different ways of the world, that will help build resilience, that will help show them different perspectives, and will also help them to be less harsh on themselves when they can't control it and they do flip their lids and they're not, and they're not good friends, or they are harming to themselves, or whatever those things are, and how to kind of teach them that it's because they're in this learning process, and that, their brains are changing, and in 5 years' time it's going to be so different, but they can start laying those seeds now for the future.
That is so cool. So is it something that they can, like, people can buy it and then their teens can
Yes.
just go on and
Yeah,
they
I'll
can,
give you a link. It's not, I've got to record it all first. I'm almost there. I've written the scripts. It's a huge amount of research, and I
I
really want
bet.
to make it so that it inspires the kids, and that parents can feel really good that they're kind of arming their children with these tools.
That's
So
so
I can give
fab.
you a link where people can do the pre-sign up before I announce it.
Yeah, fab. Yes, I will put the link in my show note. And where can we find you? I know your Instagram is No Mum is an Island and your
Yep, No
website.
Mum is an Island is Instagram, and nomumisanisland.com is my website.
Fabulous. So, yes, please check out Jade, everyone. She's amazing, and obviously you've done so much research over. You can tell in the way that you speak and the research that you've done, and all the gurus that you speak of are just like the world's best. And I love that you integrate that into your work. I think your course for the teen sounds incredible, so I'm definitely going to have a nosy at that. But yeah, thank you, Jade. It's been a really wonderful conversation.
Great.
And for me personally, I'm so interested in all the unschooling and the world schooling and all of that. So I think other people will hopefully find that really valuable, hearing your words on that. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you for having me. It's been really nice chatting.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.